Number 1. The Frankenstein mammal, Platypus. It's the late 1700s in London, and you're a respectable scientist with a wig, a quill pen, and a very serious belief that the world makes sense. One day, a parcel arrives from a strange new place called Australia. Inside is a small brown animal with a beaver tail, webbed feet, and a duck bill stitched onto its face. You pinch the bill and it's soft, not carved. You tug at the seams, looking for the prank. The skin doesn't budge. Instead, you find tiny spurs on the hind legs, spurs that turn out to be venomous in the males. And inside that ridiculous bill, an entire radar system of electroreceptors that let it sense the electric fields of buried prey in muddy rivers. This thing lays eggs like a reptile, feeds its young with milk like a mammal, carries venom like a snake, and hunts with electric senses like a sci-fi robot, all in one body. The platypus doesn't just break the definition of mammal, it shreds the flashcards and sets them on fire. No wonder early British scientists literally wrote that it naturally excites the idea of some deceptive preparation. Today, the platypus is proof that evolution isn't a neat ladder, it's a chaotic collage. Its genes help researchers trace how traits like lactation and even venom evolve. And next time someone tells you, that's impossible for a mammal, you can just smile and think. Tell that to the animal that science thought was a hoax. Number 2. The lizard that regrows itself, Axolotl. Picture yourself standing on the edge of a quiet canal in Mexico City, early morning mist curling off the water. This used to be part of the Aztec lake system, a maze of floating gardens. Under the surface, a small face stares back at you. A pale, smiling salamander with feathery red gills like tiny underwater flames. The axolotl never really grows up. It stays in this weird teenage stage for its entire life. Scientists carry these creatures into brightly lit labs in Europe and the US, gently anesthetize them, and then do something brutal. They cut off a leg, or a piece of the spinal cord, or even part of the heart. Where your body would panic and scar, the axolotl stays calm. Cells around the wound de-differentiate, turning back into a kind of blank slate. Over days and weeks, a little transparent bud forms, then a tiny limb, complete with bones, nerves, muscles, and skin. This isn't just healing fast. The axolotl is effectively telling its cells, forget who you were. Become what I need. It can regenerate complex structures, including parts of its brain, with almost no scarring. It breaks the quiet assumption you live with every day, that damage is permanent, and your organs only get worse with time. Because of that, axolotls are now superstars in regenerative medicine research. If we can decode their tricks, we might one day repair human hearts after heart attacks or restore movement after spinal injuries. Meanwhile, the wild axolotl is critically endangered in its own home. So the creature that could teach you to rebuild yourself might vanish before you ever learn how. Evolution gave us a cheat code for damage repair, and we're almost letting it disappear. Number 3. The underground immortal empire, naked mole rat. Imagine digging straight down into the dry ground of East Africa. The air gets hotter, then suddenly colder and stale. Your world shrinks to cramped tunnels just wide enough for your body. You hear soft squeaks, the scrape of teeth on roots, and the constant rustle of naked skin brushing past. You've just dropped into a naked mole rat colony. Down here, the rules look familiar and also completely wrong. One large female acts as the queen. She does almost all the breeding. The rest of the colony are workers and soldiers that dig, defend, and care for pups, more like ants than the every family for itself lifestyle of typical mammals. The air is low in oxygen. It would make you dizzy in minutes. But these animals shuffle along like it's nothing, barely reacting to pain that would have you screaming in an ER. Here's the part that breaks evolution for you. They almost don't seem to age. A mouse the same size might live 2 or 3 years. A naked mole rat can cruise past 30. They hardly ever get spontaneous cancers. Their cells resist stress, repair damage better, and shrug off low oxygen levels that would kill other mammals. It's like someone copy-pasted long-lived tortoise settings into a tiny, ugly sausage. For scientists, naked mole rats are gold. Studying them is helping researchers understand how to extend healthy lifespan and why cancer happens in the first place. For you, they're a reminder that the way humans age isn't the only way. Somewhere in a dark tunnel, a wrinkly little mammal is proving that a long, healthy life doesn't require a perfect diet or a gym membership, just a very weird evolutionary path. The question isn't, can we live longer? Anymore. It's, what will we do if we can? Number 4. The creature that laughs at space, tardigrades. Imagine scraping a bit of moss off a rooftop in Berlin or a garden wall in Chicago, dropping it under a microscope, and discovering an 8-legged bear with a face like a vacuum cleaner nozzle. It waddles through a jungle of water droplets, sucking on algae, looking like a Pixar character that missed its casting call. It's small enough to fit 1,000 of them on a grain of sand, and yet it might be tougher than you are in every possible way. Scientists dry these animals out until they're basically dust. They freeze them below Antarctic winter, heat them past boiling, blast them with radiation that would shred human DNA, and then, just to be petty, launch them into outer space. In one experiment, dehydrated tardigrades orbited Earth, exposed directly to vacuum and cosmic rays, and when they came back and got a little water, some of them just woke up and walked away. The paradox is that they survive by almost stopping life itself. Tardigrades curl into a ton, shut down their metabolism to near zero, and let their bodies become biological glass, their DNA wrapped in protective proteins, waiting for conditions to get better. They prove that life doesn't have to be constantly on to count as alive. That's not just a weird fun fact, it's a hint. If a speck-sized animal can pause itself through hell and back, maybe our idea of living or dead is too simple. One day, the way tardigrades cheat death might help us store organs, seeds, even human cells for deep space travel, and force you to rethink where life can exist at all. Number 5. The jellyfish that hits reset on aging, Turritopsis dohrnii. You're drifting with the warm currents off the coast of Italy, sunlight flickering down in pale, green beams. Around you, tiny jellyfish pulse through the water, each one smaller than your fingernail, almost invisible unless the light hits them just right. One of them is quietly preparing to do something you can't: reverse its own life. When this jellyfish gets injured, starved, or just old, it doesn't slowly fall apart. Its cells start changing jobs. The adult body shrinks, its tentacles vanish, and the whole thing collapses into a blob that settles on the seafloor. From that blob, a new, younger form sprouts, a polyp, like the starting level of its life. It's as if a butterfly got stressed and decided, you know what? I'm a caterpillar again. The twist is that this isn't a one-time glitch. In theory, Turritopsis can loop this process again and again, cycling between adult and juvenile forms. It's not immortal in the fantasy sense. Predators and disease still kill it, but biologically, it dodges the usual one-way road to aging that you're stuck on. For scientists, this jellyfish is a living question mark. If one animal can reprogram its own cells back to an earlier state, what does that say about our own biology? Somewhere under the waves, a tiny creature is quietly proving that getting older doesn't have to mean marching toward decay. And that should make you feel both hopeful and slightly disturbed. Number 6. The shark that outlives countries, Greenland shark. Picture the North Atlantic, dark and freezing, the kind of water that makes your bones ache just thinking about it. A few hundred meters down, your world is nothing but black water and drifting snowflakes of organic debris. Out of that gloom drifts a massive shape, gray, scarred, eyes clouded by parasites, moving at the speed of a bored glacier. This is a Greenland shark, and it has been here longer than you can imagine. Scientists studying these sharks don't find a tidy birth certificate. Instead, they slice into the proteins of the islands, the part formed before birth and never replaced, and use radioactive traces left from Cold War nuclear tests as a timestamp. The answer that comes back is absurd. Many of these sharks are centuries old. 2, 3, maybe even 400 years. Some were alive before the United States existed as a country. That flips the usual script on big predators. You think fast life, fast death. But here's a vertebrate that grows slowly, lives in darkness, and quietly ages on a timescale closer to oak trees than to you. For a creature that old, human history is just a messy, noisy phase happening on the surface. The consequence is stark. Every time a Greenland shark dies in a fishing net, you might be wiping out nearly half a millennium of slow, patient survival. Studying them could help us understand how cold, low-energy lives stretch out time, and maybe teach us that not every problem is meant to be solved at human speed. Number 7. The fish whose males become organs, deep-sea anglerfish. Now drop past the last rays of sunlight into the midnight zone of the Atlantic or Pacific. The pressure feels like the weight of a small building crushing every square inch. It's cold, empty, and quiet. Until you see it, a ghostly female anglerfish, jaws full of teeth like broken glass, drifting with a glowing lure dangling from her forehead. She's huge compared to the males of her species, who look like tiny, desperate tadpoles. When one finally finds her in the darkness, he does the only thing evolution has left him. He bites her. Not playfully, permanently. Over time, their skin fuses, his blood vessels hook into hers, and his organs shrink away until he's little more than a pair of gonads plugged into her body. He gives up his face, his independence, his entire existence to become an attached accessory. The paradox is that this horror movie marriage is actually an evolutionary solution. In a world where finding a mate is almost impossible, becoming a permanent organ guarantees that when she's ready to spawn, sperm is literally on tap. It's the most extreme version of two become one that biology has come up with. For you, it's a reminder that normal sex roles are just one option among many. Down in the dark, individuality is negotiable, and survival gets first say. The next time someone tells you, this is just how nature works, remember there's a fish out there whose husband is physically welded into her bloodstream. Number 8. The shrimp with a gun for a fist, mantis shrimp. You're snorkeling over a coral reef in Australia or the Philippines. Color explodes everywhere. Corals, fish, sun flashing on the surface. And then you spot a small, bright creature peeking out of a burrow, eyes swiveling on stalks. That's a mantis shrimp, and it's watching you with vision you literally can't imagine. This animal sees colors you don't have names for. Ultraviolet patterns, polarized reflections, hidden codes painted across other animals' shells. But its most terrifying trick isn't in its eyes, it's in its arms. When a crab or snail wanders too close, the mantis shrimp cocks its clubbed limb back like a spring-loaded hammer and fires. The punch is so fast that the surrounding water boils into a bubble and then collapses, creating a tiny shockwave that hits the prey even if the physical strike misses. Glass can crack. Shells explode. The paradox here is power in miniature. You'd expect something this small to be cautious, fragile. Instead, physics itself becomes a weapon. The shrimp doesn't just punch, it momentarily breaks the water around it. Nature has turned a crustacean into a living impact cannon. Engineers in the US and Europe now study mantis shrimp clubs to design tougher materials for body armor, sports gear, and aerospace. So the next time you tap on an aquarium and think, it's just a little shrimp, remember, you're the one on the wrong side of the glass. Number 9. The shape-shifting sea impostor, mimic octopus. Imagine wading into a shallow, murky bay in Indonesia at low tide. The sand looks empty at first, just ripples and the occasional shell. Then the sand rises, unfolds into arms, and an octopus appears where, a second ago, there was nothing. Its body shifts from pale beige to stripy brown, limbs stretching into new shapes like liquid rubber. A hungry fish approaches and the octopus makes a decision. It doesn't just change color, it becomes someone else. It pulls its arms together and glides across the bottom like a flatfish. Or it stretches two arms stiff and bands itself in black and white, mimicking a poisonous sea snake. Observers have watched the same animal use different impersonations depending on what predator is around, as if it's scrolling through a menu of costumes. The twist is intent. This isn't passive camouflage like a chameleon fading into a leaf. It's active, strategic mimicry, one creature using its flexible body and sharp brain to cosplay as multiple other species. For your neat categories of instinct versus intelligence, that's deeply uncomfortable. These octopuses challenge the idea that high intelligence needs a backbone, a big brain, or a mammal body. Their tricks force scientists to ask what self even means when your shape, color, and apparent species can change in seconds. It's hard not to wonder. If an octopus can fake being 3 different animals in one afternoon, how many roles are you playing without realizing it? Number 10. The animal that ditched sex for millions of years, Bdelloid rotifers. Picture a dried-up puddle in a European forest, or a crust of moss on a Swedish stone wall, or the thin film of water in a German flower pot. As the sun bakes it, everything seems dead. Then rain falls, the water seeps in, and suddenly millions of invisible life forms wake up. Among them, tiny wheel animals called Bdelloid rotifers, spinning their cilia like little crowns. Under a microscope, they look cute and harmless, like cartoon vacuum cleaners sucking in algae and bacteria. But their family drama is wild. For at least 30 to 40 million years, they've had no males. No mating. No sex. Every individual is female, cloning herself, over and over. According to the usual rules, that should be an evolutionary dead end. No mixing DNA, no new gene combos, just a slow march toward extinction. Here's the twist. They found a loophole. When their habitat dries out, their bodies shrivel and crack open just enough for foreign DNA from bacteria, fungi, even plants to slip in. When they rehydrate, some of that borrowed code gets stitched into their own genomes. Instead of swapping genes through sex, they literally steal upgrades from the environment. For evolutionary biologists, Bdelloid rotifers are an insult and an inspiration at the same time. They prove that even something as fundamental as sex is just one solution among many. And for you, they're a tiny reminder that the world is full of quiet exceptions to rules you never thought to question.